Okay, good morning, class. This morning we are going to talk about social diversity in gender. Social diversity is looking at various social groups in the society and how they can be accommodated in policy formulation. That is, government making policy that affects this group of people. There are various groups in the society. So the ones that we are going to look at, because we cannot look at all the groups in the society, so we are going to choose some of these groups, just few. We are going to look at women. We are going to look at physically challenged. We are going to look at groups such as homosexuals, social groups. There are social groups. We have other groups like in Nigeria, as you know, we have the albinos, physically challenged. They are all social groups that they need attention of government. So we are looking at these groups. Uh, let's look at gender. These are the dimensions of social diversity. And we look at gender. And when we look at gender, we know that, by the way, what is gender? We need to know what is gender. What do you think of when you hear the word gender from the society? You are coming from the society, so we need to know what do you think? Well, gender is not about women, but gender is about men and women in the society working together in relationship to move the society forward. And that is what we call gender relations. So gender has to do with social construction, what the society think about men and women, and then what can these men and women do together to move society forward. That is what our concern is this morning. So we'll talk about gender more and more. But as we go, for now, we are going to just look at gender, what it is, because some people think that when you hear gender, you think it's about women. But gender is not just about women, but gender is about men and women. So don't forget, I will ask you again another day about what is gender. And don't tell me it's women. It's not women. It's about men and women working together in the society to move the communities forward, or to work together to move a particular project forward. We also look at gender in various ways. We can begin to say, okay, what about sex? Sex is biological, while gender is socially constructed by society. Let's move forward. Then there are other social dimensions of social diversity. We talk about the physical challenges. When you talk about physical challenge, in Nigeria, we like to call names, we like to call people anyhow, and that is why you could see them and you think they are disabled. No, they are physically challenged in many ways. It can be their eyes, it can be maybe their hearing impairment, it can be physical things like losing one leg or a hand, or many things like that. But they are a special group, they are a social group that we need to look at them and begin to plan programs for them. What are those policies that affect them in society and in government? Government policymakers need to know that this is a very special group that need to be catered for, that is, to plan programs for them. For instance, government is constructing a health facility, and they are not, if they don't take the physical challenge into consideration, you can imagine When for instance, if the blind go to that hospital, how would they move around in the hospital? Also, if people who are using wheelchair because of their physical challenge, they will not be able to maneuver their chairs very well. Also, if toilets are not constructed to fit the physical challenge, who will be using like wheelchairs, or they are blind, moving around, they have to know their way through. So it is very, very important that you look at a social group like the physical challenge, and you begin to plan your policies, your programs to accommodate them. That is very, very important. Then we'll look at religion. Religion is a social diversity, because religion, we have many religions in this country, especially in a country like Nigeria, where we have the Christians, we have the Muslims, we have the traditional worshippers, and we also have people who don't even believe in any of those. So, why is it important for us to look at this particular group here in this particular lecture? We are talking about policy. And who makes policy? It's government that makes policy. And if government is making policy and they undermine the religious groups, maybe they are planning a new city, and then you don't give them a place for worship, to build their worship places like the mosques or the churches, or the traditional religion that worship, you can give them a place, you allocate places for them. So there should be policies that cover such areas. So they are very important to the society, because if you don't plan your policy with them, you don't plan programs with them, then you neglect them, and that can create problem in the society. So it is very important that we look at them very seriously as a social group, and plan along with them. Government must learn to plan policies to capture these groups, so that it will not create problem in the future. Then we look at sexuality. Even though it may be funny to us in Nigeria that we are talking about sexuality, but there is a social group. It's a social diversity. There are people, that is the way people think. Men want to marry men, women want to marry women. Yes, I know those of you who are religious who said, no, the Bible did not say so. Yes, the Bible did not say so, but this is somebody who don't believe in that. So what do you do with them? I remember the National Assembly has thrown out a bill about sexuality, especially when you talk about the opposite sex, the homosexuals. Nobody wants to hear about that in Nigeria, but that can create a problem in the society, because there are people who want to be homosexuals or lesbians. They have a different thinking from what we are thinking. If you are talking from a religious perspective, they are not looking at it that way. They want their freedom. They will tell you it's their human rights. So what do you do about it? So you must make policies that will accommodate them. Don't just close your eyes towards them, but that you need to know about them and know that they are a social group, and that it can create problems to your policies. If you make a policy, a blind policy, and thinking that there is nothing like that in Nigeria, and then tomorrow you could see groups coming up, maybe demonstrating and calling themselves maybe homosexuals, or they call themselves different names. What do you do about it? And that is why it's very important for us as policymakers to know about these various groups, the various dimensions, so that we can accommodate them in the society. Now, the next thing we are going to look at also is social roles. Class, let me pause here and let us have a few discussion about what is social role. What are social roles? What are social roles, class? Okay, okay. I agree with you. You are right. That is your own opinion. Okay. You see, social roles has to do with what society, a particular, let's go back to our gender and our sex definition when we talk about gender and we talk about sex. And we say that gender is society, gender roles are societal roles that constructed by the society. So when we talk about social roles, there are different roles in different societies that the society have marked for men and women. You know, like in Nigeria, we know that it is men that do. Women, men don't cook. Men don't go to the kitchen to cook. Men don't sweep. You know, but it is women that are sweeping. It is women that are cooking. It is only women who go to fetch water. But we are now saying that these social roles, are they benefiting the society? What is wrong with you as a man to go out there to fetch water for your wife or for your household? So even if society, most of us come from our cultures and traditions and think that because the society have said it is women who must cook, so it is a woman who must cook, or it is a woman who must go to the market to buy the foodstuff, to buy this and that for the household. But these roles can be, can be changed. A man can do it. A man can go to the market and buy the foodstuff. A man can go and fetch water. You go with your car or you go with your machine, fetch water in jerry cans and bring it for your wife. So when we talk of social roles, there are so many roles that men are doing and women are doing. Okay, assuming that you don't know how to cook, then your wife is not in the house, she traveled and she has not come back, and you have the children to feed. Who cook for them? So social roles are very important for us to know that these social roles can be changed. Since we say gender is constructed by society and they can change, the roles can change over a period of time. So also social roles can change over a period of time. So it's important for us as policymakers to know that it is not only women. So when you are planning policy, you are making your policy, you must know whom you are making that policy for. Then we look at vulnerability. There are notes that we can look at this. I'm just, I want us to understand these concepts first before we go into the details of these lectures. And we'll get notes, we'll download some. There are some that I've made that I will give to you. Then we look at vulnerability. Who are the vulnerable group? What do you mean when you talk about vulnerability? Can somebody tell me? Well, there are people who are vulnerable in the society, and who are those? Some of these groups are the ones we have even talked about them. Women are vulnerable. Why are they vulnerable? In our society, women are not regarded, especially in Nigeria, that is a patriarchal society. In a patriarchal society where men dominate everything, women are vulnerable because, let me give you an example now. When you are in the community and there is belief that women don't own farm, the woman doesn't own a farm. So when the government has given, or you have made a policy to say that government will give fertilizer to a particular community, well, since women don't have farm, so they don't farm. So you won't give women, you will not allocate fertilizer for women to farm on their farm. But you know that women own farm, whether they inherit farm or they don't inherit farm. Okay, what of a woman who is a widow? What do you do with her? She's vulnerable because she doesn't have protection, since protection comes from men. So that security is not there for her. And then you don't allocate resources to her when you are distributing resources. You don't allocate to her. So she's vulnerable because she doesn't have access to resources and she doesn't have control over resources. There are other vulnerable groups, like when you look at young girls. When we talk about girl child education, there are some of you, even some of you who are educated here, who think that educating your daughters is not important. So you make them very vulnerable. We'll talk more about the vulnerable groups in our next lecture. So let's look at another dimension of social diversity, and that is politics. You know, in Nigeria, when we look at politics, it's the strongest that win election, even if they are men. We are not talking about women alone here, but even men. There are men that are weak. They don't have the strength, they don't have the money to go into politics. And then when you look at women, of course, women don't have economic power. And because they don't have economic power, they will rely on others. Like in Nigeria, you have godfatherism. No man would want to sponsor a woman into politics, but they can sponsor men. So we look at politics, and it's a very serious issue that when we look at it again in the next class, we shall see how this is a social issue that we need to address very seriously. Okay, we look at participation. Class, what is participation? We need to know what is participation. Participation is how people are involved. You are involved. For instance, you involved in politics. Your involvement in politics doesn't mean only going to vote and going to vote, but that you have a say. You have a say in political activities in your community, in your local government, in your state, and if possible at the federal government, that you have a say. Participation, so that you are participating in political activity. You are not just there to just go and vote. Just voting is not participation, but that decisions that are taken, you have a say you have a say either to say yes or no, to agree or to not agree, or to help government to come up with policies to say this is what we want in our community, and whether that project is for the entire community. You have a say. It's not just government coming in and telling you that, oh, we want to make boreholes and we are going to set up boreholes where they like. No, but that you can decide where your boreholes should be, water supply, or you want to build a health center. You should be able to know where you want the health center or a school. So political participation, the people getting involved in politics have a say in governance, and that is why we say it is good governance. Then we look at economic participation, and especially let's look at women. Women, they do a lot of economic activities. They participate in the economy of their community, their country, and their state. Yet, you know that the economic activities that women are doing is not even counted in the Nigerian GDP. It is not counted. You know, so when you are making policy and you are talking about economic growth, and you are talking about who is contributing to nation building, and you don't put women, or you don't put the vulnerable group, you think that, oh, artisans, what they are doing is not important. But it's economic activities. They are making money. They are transacting business, you know. So people, you must know as policymakers that every contribution of every group is important to help the country to grow in its GDP, that is the gross domestic product, and the national domestic product, the national product, you know, to look at growth, so that when you are measuring growth in Nigeria, for instance, which growth are you looking at? Are you putting all this together? Then we look at social participation. Like I mentioned earlier, that you want to establish a clinic, a health facility in a particular community, and you go there, you say, I've come with this project, I've come with a project, and you decide where to put the project. The people may not participate in that. They may not even attend the clinic or hospital because you did not involve them in choosing the site. You may put it maybe in a place that they use it for their worship, their traditional worship. Or maybe there's a particular thing that they do there that is controversial, you don't know, but because you did not involve them in choosing the site, you think that because you are a policy maker, you sit down and make your policy and you think that is all. And that can affect your policy. They will reject, they will riot, they will destroy even the clinic. Or if you build a clinic because you have the money, they will not attend. So nobody will go to that clinic. They will still go to their traditional worship and go to traditional healers instead of using your magnificent building. Then we talk about education. Education is just like when we talk about social amenities like the clinics. You have to know that every Nigerian has a right to education, whether a woman or a man, disabled or able, they are all, they have the right to education. So they must participate. So you don't make policy and say, oh, women, they are supposed to be in the kitchen, so they should not be educated. No. Women can be in the kitchen. When they are educated, they will cook better food. Don't you think so? So these are some of the things that we are going to look at when we are looking at these social diversities. What was that? Okay. We're going to now look at violence. Violence. There are various forms of violence, and we are going to see them. We have domestic violence, physical violence, sexual violence. There are many forms. But what we want to look at in this class, we are going to look at domestic violence. What do you think is domestic violence? Can somebody share with us your experience? What do you know? What do you think? Let's brainstorm a little and see. Okay. You think that, okay, thank you. You think it's only men that beat women? Don't you know that there are women who beat their husbands? Well, that aside, let's look at the topic, domestic violence. It's, the violence that happens in the home. It can be by a man or by a woman, or the house girl or the houseboy can be domestically violated. So we'll look at domestic violence and see who is vulnerable to that. Every member of the family can be involved. So we'll look at it and then we'll come up with more when we come to the lecture proper. Then we have physical violence, where somebody is battered, you break the head, or maybe you break the hand or the leg, or beaten, and is taken to hospital. And you know that this violence is very important. It's a social diversity that we need to look at very seriously, because assuming your wife, for instance, who cook food every morning to go and sell, when you beat the woman, or if the woman is beaten and she's not able to cook that food that morning, do you know the number of people that have been affected? People who come to eat her food will not meet her there. She may be in the hospital using all the money that she has made from her business to pay for the injury. And then you are used to eating her food. You go there is no food for you. You get angry, you go to the office and you get annoyed with everybody. So whether it's domestic, whether it's physical violence, it has an effect on your policy as a policymaker. Then we talk about sexual violence, talk about rape, you know, people raping very minors, very small children, elderly people. And that is, it's not good for the society. So these are the things that we are going to look at when we come to talk about diversity. So this is just an introductory class, and we hope that by the next class we'll take up these topics in details. Thank you very much. Have a nice day.